Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I'm here to talk about my 2016 movie watching in review. This is sort of a different video for me, but I decided that this year in BookTube I've been talking a lot more about my other interests beyond books, and since one of my other huge interests is watching movies, I thought it would be fun to talk about that, do an end-of-year wrap-up, favorite, least favorite kind of list, just the way I do with books. So I hope that you're into that, because that's what this is. Like I said, I have a few different lists that I'm going to share with you. First of all, I'm going to talk about my stats, then I'm going to list my favorite movies that I rewatched this year, my least favorite movies that I watched this year, and finally, my favorite movies that were new to me in 2016. So yeah, let me just jump right in and we're going to talk about stats first. Just so you know, I have no idea how I'm going to visually put my stats over here yet as I'm filming this, so seeing this for me, will be just as new as it is right now to you, because current CC has no idea what this looks like. Very first number that you gotta know is that in 2016, I watched a grand total of 113 movies. I kept track all year, counted them all up, 113. That does include rewatches, obviously, just so you know. And in fact, 54% of those movies, or 61 movies total, were rewatches, which leaves 46%, or 52 movies, as movies that were new to me. And of those 52 movies that were new to me, 13 of them were movies I actually went out to the theater and saw. Those are my stats. Hope you enjoyed. That is my movie year in review. Obviously, I'll be watching a couple more this year. I haven't really gotten started on my Christmas movie watching yet. Those aren't going to be on here, but hey, that's just how the video filming world works. But yes, it is time to do lists. For each of these categories, I'm going to do a top 5 list, and that means we are going to jump right in by talking about my top 5 rewatch movies. That was a throwback to when I used to do top 5 Wednesday videos. I used to love doing my little top 5 thing. Anyway, let's talk about my top 5 favorite movies that I rewatched in 2016, starting in at number 5. At number 5, we've got Hellboy. Hellboy was a hugely influential movie to me, which is something I've only discovered more with time. It is originally based on a comic series of which I've only read one trade paperback of, but I'd like to read more of them. And when I say that it was hugely influential, it's because whenever I say I'm really fascinated by like demons and angels and anything involving that, everyone always likes to be like, that's because you love supernatural, Cece. No, okay? It started with Hellboy. Okay? Hellboy is occasionally uber ridiculous, but it is just the right level of ridiculous to me. I love the effects, I adore Hellboy and his love of cats, and this is always just a joy to rewatch. Coming in at number 4. So just in case I had anybody fooled into thinking that I'm remotely a cool person, we're gonna throw that out of the water right now, because my number 4 favorite rewatch that I did in 2016 is that I rewatched the entire High School Musical trilogy. Obviously, High School Musical is near and dear to my heart for many, many reasons, besides the fact that I love musicals, and I think the High School Musical is like a legitimately fun musical. It was also filmed at East High, which is a high school that's an hour from where I grew up. I rewatched the entire trilogy when Disney Channel did their Disney Channel original movie marathon. Me and my sister watched all 3 movies, sang all of the songs, occasionally jumped up and remembered some of the dances, and overall it was a great time. Coming in at number 3, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is such a fun superhero movie, arguably my favorite. That was a lie. That was an immediate lie. My favorite superhero movie is the classic of our time, Sky High. But Guardians of the Galaxy is very close. Close enough in that I rewatched Guardians of the Galaxy twice this year. Once back in the summer, and then once just a couple weeks ago, actually. It's so much fun, the music's fantastic, and I love the new teaser for the second one. I am so ready. I'm so into Baby Groot. I'm so ready. Coming in at number 2 for my favorite rewatches, we've got Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Hence the t-shirt. Actually, this was just the only shirt I had that said the name of a movie on it. I don't know why. I think I have more, but this was the only one I could find. So, Star Wars: Force Awakens, obviously fantastic. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars in general, but I loved the new one, and obviously I watched it when it originally came out, but that was in 2015, so I rewatched it multiple times in 2016. It's just so much fun. It's so much fun. Plus, as I've said many, many times before, Rey means a great deal to me as a girl who grew up loving Star Wars. So it was just a really special experience for me, and I will continue to love and adore Star Wars, and I'm cautious about Rogue One, which I have not seen yet, but hopeful. But very hopeful. And finally, coming in at number 1, my favorite rewatch for the entirety of 2016 was Perks of Being a Wallflower. The reason this gets the number 1 spot is because I have a list, a very carefully cultivated list of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, and this rewatch, this year that I did, solidified Perks of Being a Wallflower a spot on that list. Obviously, when it originally came out, I was completely in love with it. I watched it a bunch of times, and as soon as it came out, my mom bought me the DVD because she knew I was obsessed. But over the years, I've only grown to love it more. I think that it is just masterfully done. I think that the writing is fantastic. I think that it looks amazing. Obviously, I love it. It's one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, which is why I had such a good time rewatching it, even though it's still, after all these years, gets me to cry like a baby every time. And that is my top 5 list of my favorite rewatches in 2016. Now we are getting into the bad list. Now we are getting into my top 5 least favorite movies that I watched in 2016. This was actually an incredibly difficult list to make because originally I made a list of like 10 without even looking at my list of movies that I watched. So I saw some bad movies. I decided that my criteria for truly terrible movies was going to be movies that made me incredibly angry that I'd gone to see them, and movies that, if you asked me, Cece, why didn't you like that movie? I could probably give you at least a 20-minute rant. Let's jump into those on that positive note. Coming in at number 5, we've got Independence Day, Resurgence. Independence Day is a fantastic movie, and it is a movie that I always try to rewatch on the 4th of July because I think it's a joy, and I think it's unbelievably fun, and I think that Bill Pullman's speech right before they go to try to destroy the aliens is a speech that is a classic. And this was painful. It ended, and I went to see it with 2 of my friends, and we were in shock because it was just so bad. I don't think a single person in the movie put in a halfway decent performance, and in fact, the best part of the whole film is a scene in which Jeff Goldblum is flying to the moon, I think, and he starts, like, screaming because he's afraid. That's it. That's the best thing. It's the funniest part of the movie, is Jeff Goldblum going, "Ah, ah." Bill Pullman's a disaster. He never gets to do another speech, which is just sad. It's consistently not funny, consistently not entertaining, and just the biggest disappointment of all. Coming in at number 4, we've got a movie called Safe. Janelle was in a class last year, and it was about gender and cinema, and I watched all of her movies with her. They were all pretty terrible, I'll be honest with you, but this one actually haunts me with how bad it is. It stars Julianne Moore, and she is a housewife, and she is discovering that she has chemical sensitivity, so anything around her makes her incredibly sick because we live in a world of chemicals. It's so much. It's so pretentious, and this guy on the cover making that weird thing, which I still do sometimes to freak Janelle out because I think it's hysterical, has almost nothing to do with the plot, and when he does show up, he is never explained. It is abysmal. The ending is terrible. This movie haunts me. At number 3 is Legend. This is an adaptation of a nonfiction novel about the Cray twins. They were gangsters in the East End in the 60s, and the book was incredibly interesting. It was all about their various exploits. This movie was terrible. First of all, there was a point at which I was like, we've got to stop this. I have to go make some popcorn or something. I can't keep getting through this movie. And we paused it, and I assumed we had about 15 minutes left, and we were not even halfway through the movie. Secondly, they gave one of the love interests, like, this role where she was the narrator, and that was 8 kinds of weird decisions. The music was terrible. You couldn't hear anyone talking. The only thing this had going for it is that Tom Hardy was really trying his hardest, and I love Tom Hardy, so I respect that, but it was not good. And at number 2, we've got, appropriately, Now You See Me 2. Now You See Me is sort of a ridiculous movie, but I love con movies, heist movies, anything like that. I'm 100% there for. I am 100% there for it, no matter how bad it is. Or so I thought. First of all, something you should know, Woody Harrelson plays his own evil twin. That should be the end of the list. That should be enough to tell you about this movie. But it's also got Daniel Radcliffe parading around being like, magic, magic, and I can't take that seriously because the man's Harry Potter. It was written in a way that was so confusing, but also not confusing at all, because the point of, like, movies where they draw your eyes someplace in order to distract you is that you don't figure it out, you don't see the twist, and they would be like, look, do you see what we're gonna do? Do you get it yet? Do you get it yet? Do you understand? Do you get it? Do you get it? Like, there were points in the theater when I saw it with my sister that I would just grab her arm and be like, because I got it. I got there, guys. You can stop explaining it now. And finally, number 1, my least favorite movie that I watched for the first time in 2016 was Jenny's Wedding. Now, Jenny's Wedding was a movie I was incredibly excited for. It stars Katherine Heigl and Alexis Bledel. It is supposed to be a story about Katherine Heigl. She isn't out to her parents, but she's getting married to a woman. Like, lesbian wedding. How is that not up my alley? Plus, it stars Katherine Heigl, queen of the subpar romantic comedy. I don't think that they could have hit me over the head harder with the fact that it was difficult in this time to be gay. There is this song that they play, I think it's by Mary Lambert actually, where it's like, I can't change, even if I try. Every time Katherine Heigl got into an argument with her family where they were like, you are gay, that is bad, and it ruins my life for reasons, they would play that song as someone dramatically walked away. Alexis Bledel and Katherine Heigl kissed maybe one time, but they, like, never talked to each other. It was... I'm sorry, I could probably do a 30-minute rant about how much I hated Jenny's Wedding, but I've blocked most of it at this point, so... It should have been so good. It should have been. Alright, that made me angry. Let's talk about my favorite movies that were new to me in 2016. So these were movies I watched for the very first time this year, and that I have fallen in love with. Of these movies, 4 were, I believe, 2016 release movies, and one of them was decidedly not a 2016 release, but let's talk about those, starting in at number 5. And at number 5, I've got Finding Dory, the sequel to my favorite Pixar movie. Finding Nemo is my favorite Pixar movie because there is no fictional character in the history of fiction that I am more similar to than Marlin the fish. I am a grumpy old dad fish. At heart, that is who I am as a person, in case you didn't know. For a second runner-up, by the way, in terms of my personality, see Marshall from How I Met Your Mother. That's like a partial second, but really it's Marlin. So Finding Dory was incredible for numerous reasons. First of all, I thought it was not going to be good. I don't think that it's ever really a good idea to give your sidekick their own movie because it just doesn't go well most of the time. But this movie wound up being such, like, a wonderful exploration of mental illness, which never told the person with a mental illness that she was wrong or broken in any way, and if anyone did, they were the wrong ones. It was funny, it was new, and I really, really loved it. It, of course, does not even touch Finding Nemo in terms of movies I love, but I thought this was an incredibly solid sequel. Number 5, I've got Brooklyn. I watched Brooklyn on the plane home, I think, last semester in May when I flew from school back to my house, which, by the way, I don't recommend doing because you'll cry on an airplane. It just had so much heart. Every character had such life, and they were wonderfully interesting and wonderfully written. The music was amazing, the message was fantastic, and it just hit me in my heart when I watched it, and I cried on an airplane. I was sitting there like, why didn't I just watch Deadpool like the person next to me? They're not crying on an airplane. But that's the kind of decision I make. Coming in at number 3, we've got Zootopia. First of all, shortly after I saw this movie, I went and I got a Zootopia mug, which I just drink out of all the time. And this movie is both punny and funny. while it also has, again, such a great message. I think that it was a message movie without being like, this is a message movie, do you get it? It had all of the heart of a Disney movie while also having so many valuable things to say and saying them in such intelligent ways. I rewatched this a few months after I saw it in theaters, still absolutely adored it, and I just want to say that Disney did an incredible job with Zootopia. Coming in at number 2, we've got that movie that wasn't a 2016 release, and that is Thelma and Louise. This actually came out in 1991, but I watched it for that class that Janelle had to take about gender and cinema. And boy, am I glad I did. What an adventure. What fun. Obviously, I'd heard a ton about Thelma and Louise, but I'd just never seen it before, and weirdly, I just met with my thesis advisor, and it's possible I will be incorporating Thelma and Louise into my thesis. So clearly I was pretty passionate about it. I just love how nuanced these female characters are. You guys know me. I love a nuanced and well-written female character, and that is what this movie gave me in spades. It was just absolutely superb, and I will definitely be watching it again. I mean, a lot of times, since I'm apparently writing about it in my thesis. We're at the end. We're coming in at number 1. My number 1 new favorite movie that I saw in 2016. This will either make you happy or make you very angry, because reasons. That is the new Ghostbusters. So as I said when I was talking about The Force Awakens, seeing Rey in Star Wars was an incredibly fantastic moment for me as a girl who grew up loving Star Wars, but I felt like I wasn't included in Star Wars, at least not the way I wanted to be. Whenever I played pretend, I was a Jedi, and so Rey meant a lot to me, and that is exactly what Ghostbusters was to me too. I was also a girl who grew up adoring Ghostbusters, and there are no girls in Ghostbusters. There are, but they are secretaries, they are love interests, they are the butts of jokes. And as much as I love Ghostbusters, it's kind of hard to see yourself in a movie when that is the level of female representation. This movie was so good. It was unapologetically fun, and I think that it just embraced everything that it needed to embrace. It made exactly the correct number of callbacks to the original Ghostbusters while being completely new. Kate McKinnon, as much as Holtzman was not allowed really to be canonically queer in the movie, that's what she read as to me. Kate McKinnon is a queer woman, and seeing a queer woman kick all kinds of ghost ass was so meaningful to me as a queer woman. So I could do just rants and rants and rants about how much I loved the Ghostbusters movie, and it's easily a movie that went on my favorite movies of all time list, and I will continue to love it forever and forevermore. Okay guys, there you go. That is my list of all of my movie stuff in general. I hope that you enjoyed. I keep ridiculous track of the movies I watch and what I love and what I don't, and I hope that you appreciated that, because this is something I think I want to do at the end of every year since I love movies so much. What are some of your favorite movies that you saw in 2016? What are some of your least favorite movies that you saw in 2016? I know that I'm not the only one who can get into a good rant about bad movies. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!